Sorry, I forgot to mute myself. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first panel of Summit 2025. My name is Megna. I'm the marketing lead. You may not have heard during our opening ceremony since the audio was acting up a little bit. But here we are with the first panel, the art panel. And first up, I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves and then they can talk about a little bit of the career journey, and then also and then we'll get into questions. And then if you are in the Discord, feel free to use the art panel chat that we have set up there. Additionally, you can also use the Twitch chat as well to ask questions, and then we will get to those at the end of the panel. All right, cool. Would you guys like to start?
I can go first. Yeah. All right. Hey everyone. I'm Maya Mahalingam. I'm a senior environment artist. Currently, I'm working at Bonfire Studios. We're making this game called Arcaron, but there's only so much I can talk about it due to NDA right now. But I've been here for like a year, and before that, I was working for like almost 5 years at a company called Singularity 6. We made this game called Palia. It's a cozy MMO. If you like cozy games, do check it out. It's going on pretty good, pretty well. And before that, I was at Magic Leap for a little bit. It's an AR startup. Um, that was my phase of like trying out VR AR. So I really enjoyed that experience. And then right before that is when I graduated from Carnegie Mellon, ETC, and tried out a bunch of like VR companies. So yeah, that's been my journey so far.
Hello, everyone. My name's Joseph. I go by Joe. That's why you see it on my Zoom. I currently work at Riot Games for Valorant as a mid-level 3D weapon artist. I've been working here for about 3 years. Um, I feel relatively new to the industry because I graduated 3 years ago as well. So, yeah, my full-time experience has just been at Riot Games for Valorant making 3D assets. Moreover, mostly weapons, but yeah.
Awesome, thank you guys. So first for the first question, how did you end up working in the game industry? Was it always something that you wanted to pursue and were working on over the years? Or was it something that you kind of discovered as either through your school journey or afterwards? Mhm.
I could go first.
All right.
Thank you. For me, I've always been sort of an artist. I have a pretty diverse background, partly because I got my bachelor's in computer science, so a bachelor's of science. But I was pretty hard-headed about getting into game dev. Always been inspired and drawing. So for me, it was more of on my free time. I've always been studying 3D art. By studying, I mean like doing projects, personal projects, being involved in game dev club. So for me, it was always passion, um, keeping me in game dev, where again, doing projects, game jams, and all that type of stuff. And in terms of getting into the industry, my junior year of college, I've got an internship at Riot as well. So my journey was more of an internship route, where I feel like that's a very lucky route nowadays because it's really tough. Um, so my route was very direct, as in like with I guess hard work and passion, doing projects and whatnot. I landed my internship, and then through my internship, I converted to full time. So, having that lucky route, I believe mine was really straightforward, where it's just like school, intern, full time, and that's like my journey.
That's a smooth journey.
Yeah, very lucky.
For me, it was a little bit more unconventional, I would say. I come from India, so I did a visual arts degree back in India, and I was still like trying to figure out which path I wanted to take. And I really enjoyed playing games during my childhood. So I tried working at this mobile game studio, and that was my like first ever job. And I really enjoyed it. And that's kind of what led me to pursue game art and pushed me to come to the US and like try out all this. So that's how it started.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Yeah, it's very different journeys
Yeah.
overall, especially now because like I guess with how the game industry goes, there's a lot more diversity in the amount of journeys to get in, especially with how hard it is. I guess moving on in connection to sort of talking about journeys, how did you guys figure out the type of art that you wanted to pursue? Since both like one of you is a weapons artist and another one is an environment artist, they're both similar in terms of 3D, but also very different in terms of the expectations of both those roles.
I can take that one first. I think for me, I didn't like immediately discover that I wanted to do environment art from the beginning. It's just me trying out a bunch of stuff. I knew I enjoyed making props, and then I tried out character, and I it didn't go well in terms of anatomy. So I was like, okay, that's a clear no. Let me pivot, and then I'm still trying tech art, and it's just me like trying out a bunch of stuff and seeing from what I've tried out, like it seemed like environment art is you get to it. Not every week you're doing the same thing. It's like different tasks. Even some days, like today, I'm working on like an organics asset, and then tomorrow I'm working on like an architecture kit. So I love that variety. I love that like versatility, and I think that's what kept me like pushing towards environment art more. So yeah, I think just naturally happened, I think.
I'd say for myself, I started learning 3D on my own in like high school. And once I got into college, by the end of my freshman year, I was doing like a reality check with myself. I was like, all right, this was like in 2016. I saw there was like openings for like AAA studios like Blizzard and like Call of Duty and all these other stuff. And a lot of them were either like generalist or specialist type roles. And for myself, I was like, all right, I need to commit to something. Either I take a generous route or I put all my eggs in one basket and I do weapons because in the end of the day, I just think they're cool. When I get that question, it's like, oh, why do you do weapons? I was like, they're cool, I guess. So, I thought do I do a more at least back then it was considered more safe route where it's generalist or I try to go for that like specialist role where it's more niche but you really like focus and I just like all right everything's kind of I would say there's a lot of risk factor when you're making a choice and I accepted that risk factor of going niche and going all in into just weapons and I kind of committed to that and I had fun with it because I think that choice was something I enjoyed. Generalist would have worked fine too, but it's a balance of like that risk factor and doing what you have a lot of passion in as well. So I ended up choosing weapons.
I kind of want to add to that because this came from like what Joe had mentioned. I think I also like started from like a generalist idea, and I was a generalist when I worked at Magic Leap because I I feel like I still wasn't like sure what exactly I wanted to like go niche into. So that's one factor. But also I think when you're starting out of school, it's safer when you're a journalist because you have more options. You're like, you have all these like other roles that comes to you and you just like seek the best opportunity that you can get. So I think it plays sometimes well if you're a journalist and go niche after that. So good point. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, definitely like the how do you say it is definitely a bit easier to start off being a generalist and then like specialize later on. Especially with now there's a lot more like specializations in the industry. Like there's tech art and then also like, hair grooming artists. But cool, awesome. So since you guys both also have different like career paths overall, this question might be very short or very long depending. But I guess how did your approach to art change with the genre of the game that you worked on? Um, I guess this question is framed as sort of being like, is there a difference between working in AAA or indie? But you can also even say like the type of genre um, of the game that you were working on.
Uh, for me, I think style, first of all, is the most important thing. That differs like studio to studio, and based on the style, the tools that you use also kind of vary. If you're like Like the last studio that I was at, where I was working on Paleo, we used a lot, there were a lot more like organic assets that we had to do. So a lot of speed tree, a lot of like just sculpting in ZBrush and that kind of stuff. And now in my current role, we're doing more architectural kit, more modular stuff. So not a lot of that. So difference in terms of like the tool set and like how you work on a day-to-day basis. That's definitely there. And what else? I think genre too, like speaking from my previous experience again, like I think Paleo was a lot more like it was the open world, so you get to go interact with like an asset, so you get to like build the whole thing. Versus now the game that I'm working on is kind of like a top-down isometric view, so it's very like set, and you don't really have to build all these like extra back faces and like geo and that kind of stuff that you don't even see. So yeah, I think it differs a lot genre to genre and also medium as well because I've tried out like VR AR mobile games before. Like it's just so different for like each type of hardware that you're playing against. Even for games like when we were building for PC, it was like very different. The budget and the perf count and all that is so different compared to like when we ported it to Switch. Things were a lot more restrictive. So yeah, I think it differs a lot. And all that I think you pick up once you're in the studio, like once you're working on a game, that's the stuff that you learn on a day-to-day basis. So I wouldn't say like that's something that you need to know right out of school or like just when you're trying out for the first time. But yeah, just good to know if you already are in that thought process.
Magna, can I get the question again so I make sure I answer it correctly? Sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries. The question is, how did your approach to art change with either the genre of the game you worked on or like working in AAA versus indie?
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's very interesting because before I interned at Riot, all my portfolio work was just like hyper realistic stuff. Like it was definitely I was shooting for more of a Call of Duty game. And Valorant is like the complete opposite, where it's stylized, or it's like its own style. Um, and even now when working on Valorant, like I'm working in stylized every day, but I'm still posting on my ArtStation, my personal work, and that is still realistic. Um, to me, those are like two different parts of my brain, and they give me two different like satisfactions. One because I love getting those feelings of my renders being like looking like photos, but then again at work, like Maya said, it's like you learn a lot in the day to day. And it's more of you're not learning, but I feel like when you're a student, it's more about 'cause when people say style, and I love talking about like different styles because to me they feel like different mediums. It's like it's all about having that critical eye and learning how to, I guess, learn. Because you can just practice a style every day, but I feel like when you're on the job, being able to learn is your biggest like flex. Because again, different studios have different versions of style or stylized. So the me like going to work, I was learning a lot because I enjoyed learning, and it's easy to pick up style when you're good at learning. That's why in my head I feel like it's easier to like switch in between. Whereas I think just saying I want to learn this specific style, it's like, all right, but what are you trying to learn from that style? Um, so I think these questions are really interesting. I love to dive deep, but for me, myself, it's just like it's very much like what Maya said, learning on the job, trying out these new different things. But then on my own time, it's like I'm doing something completely different as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for your answers. Yeah, definitely like the I guess like job environment in general is very different from like learning stuff on your own because you're also surrounded by like great people too. And being able to learn from either much more senior members or members of different fields.
I think nowadays too, like earlier, like when I was like straight out of college, I noticed that like a lot of studios were hiring for, okay, you gotta have this specific style in your portfolio, like heavily stylized or depending on the game they were making for the studio. But I think now with how like the industry has kind of changed and evolved, I see even studios that are super deep into like one specific style, they're okay interviewing candidates who have like a different kind of style, just as long as you have that artistic vision and you kind of have examples that showcase like a little bit of that and give them the sense that you're capable of hitting your art style, but they don't strongly prefer that anymore. So I think style is not even like a filter anymore, I would say. I think as long as you have, like Joe said, like the artistic and like the creative vision, and you can prove that you can kind of hit any style, people are comfortable hiring you.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Yeah, it's really interesting seeing that industry change too, especially when it comes to like what is style
Yeah.
overall. All right, awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So next question. This is kind of a bit different because I'm not sure if either of you were self-employed at some point or like freelancing, but I could kind of reiterate this as being so when you were spending time looking for jobs and maybe working on your portfolio, how did it differ from working in a studio where you're obviously like clocking in every day and like working for a lot and then you're clocking out?
Uh, I don't have a lot of freelancing experience because I cannot work freelance with my visa restrictions. So that's something. So, but I can only talk about like working in the studio and how that has like influenced a lot of my learning process. Like even now, I love working remotely too, but I don't know. I feel like there's so much you get to learn and like so much more like easy collaboration that just like comes out of the box when you're in a studio. And right now at my current job, I'm hybrid 2 days in a week, which I think is a blessing. I totally enjoy that, and I think there's a lot that you can get from like working at a studio. But I also don't want to go back 5 days a week. So I think it's a balance, and the studio I'm at is doing like a great job of balancing that. So yeah, I think working you get a lot of benefits working from a studio with peers all around.
I've only worked a bit of freelance, only when I was in college. I can't say it's the exact experience of people who do freelance like as their whole like day to day. What I've learned though from like either working freelance like part-time or currently being employed full time, from what I've learned from the people I look up to as well, is like kind of the learning never stops. Even from my day to day, myself, I'm kind of a workaholic. I can't speak for everyone. But even after work, I'm doing my own projects. I'm doing what I think is really cool and really fun and um in AAA, you're surrounded by people that like want to learn and want to do cool stuff. So it's like I want to do that too. And on my free time, it's not that I'm like working myself to death. Like I'm not giving myself burnout, but I'm still always learning. And from when I was a student, even when I had like that part-time job, uh, in 3D, and it was more mundane of just like making low polys and bakes and stuff like that. I was still doing my best to learn on my free time, and even now. Um, I'm doing those personal projects. I'm doing my own little projects in Unreal Engine. It's more of that the learning still doesn't stop even if you're employed. That's kind of how I want to answer that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. Sorry about that. Um, Especially with this question, because I think it's definitely, but thank you guys for answering regardless. Um, I guess the next question is what kind of goal or impact do you want to try and reach with your art? A bit more philosophical in terms of questions, but I guess in terms of either emotional impact or if you want like I guess in terms of social impact, things like that.
Do you want to go first, Joe?
Yeah, I could go first. Um, so it's funny because when I first started, it was like I just want to make weapons, and that's like what I want to do. Because especially since I want to work for like Call of Duty or like even Bungie. But as I continue to work at Valorant, and if you play Valorant, you could kind of like see from like getting these skins or like using these skins. We call them skins. Um, a lot of even though they're weapons, we have our weapons be experiences, and that's something I've learned on the job, which is really cool. Because our themes for our weapons, they're like an experience when you use them, especially the higher tier ones. We have like one called Levoy Dream Wings, where it's like a magical girl themed skin, and and that's the experience. It's like they do really like cute like flying effects, and they have really cute visual effects, and it's a whole theme to that weapon, and especially if you have the weapon set, if you switch between all the weapons, like it's an experience to use them, and they add to that uh like player expression on what they want to like feel when they're playing the game, and to some of them they give them aimbot, like it makes them feel like they shoot better. um so when I'm like making my weapons even on my own time, it's like I start getting that mindset of like the player experience, not just what I mean, I love making my cool renders and stuff. It's just like, my latest project were like gunchucks where they're like guns, but they're like nunchucks. And it's just like that derived from being a meme, but also the experience of like gun enthusiasts, but like what people haven't seen before. So my art starts to cater towards like what kind of Valorant taught me of just like creating player experience, and experiences as well.
I think I definitely agree with what Joe said. It's a lot of putting the player first and like what you want them to experience. And I think for me, I try to think of like the story when I'm building stuff. Like when I'm like in texturing, like I try to add all these like tiny details depending on if the asset's like super used up or if it's like a pristine kind of asset, you'd kind of add like all the surface detail to kind of tell that story a little bit. And when you get into like world building too, I try to think about like how you want the player to experience running through that space. So what I try to do is like if we already have like a narrative deck or like a lore of that space, I try to like read through it and then like influence stuff from that and try to build according to that. If not, then I sit with the designer for like quick huddle and just like like build off of that and try to work through it. So yeah, I feel like I try to put like the player lens first when I'm world building and try to tell a story through that, and hopefully that evokes whatever emotion we're going for that space. But yeah, I think that's what I try to do.
Right. Awesome. Thank you guys. Um, yeah, in terms of like, um, sorry, I lost my train of thought really quick, but sorry. Um, but thank you guys for the really good answers so far. So moving on to a little bit of like a more kind of more serious question. So after we've gotten a little bit more philosophical, have you faced any challenges in the game industry, whether that be like finding a job or, um, I don't know what what other challenges there are, but I guess in terms of like your experience in the industry, have you faced any challenges in terms of like either socially or like finding a job? And has the industry gotten better over time? Curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Um, I can answer, and my lens is a little bit more small, my scope. 3 years in. But from my experience, it's definitely a reality check through like the rounds of layoffs that you see from your peers, from the industry, and from the people you know. Um, the way I visualize it, in the most respectful way possible, is like the game industry is also a business. They make money, and the money is what hires the people. So, in my perspective, it's a balance of doing what I love and meeting the demands of the industry. Um, and by that, it's also like seeing it through a realistic lens. As much as I want to make weapons for games, that's very niche. So it's like not every game is looking for that. So I have to kind of accept that and accept that reality, and kind of be on my toes. It's just like I love working where I love, but if if for some reason, for business reasons, things happen, it's like I have to be ready for that. So I have to always make sure I'm on top of my game, and it's like kind of like a stress that never leaves, you know? And it kind of sucks to say that, but it's like if we want to be realistic, it's like, I gotta be on my toes. Um, and yeah, I love games and I love making weapons, but the reality is like I gotta be ready for any situation. Um, and kind of keep my and it's for my future self, It's like I want to keep my future self ready as well.
Yeah, I think definitely there are a lot more challenges these days with like what you've been hearing in the industry, but I think it's gonna get better. It's gonna evolve a little bit, and we all just have to like adapt to where it's going towards and work towards that. But I think for me personally, because of like the visa stuff, it just comes in your way a lot more than you think. So you gotta just like play it smart, keep your portfolio updated, and prove out that you could do like style or none of the technical constraints or limitation for like what you can do artistically. So just having that strong portfolio speaks a lot and it's going to carry you forward no matter what. And if you also show like when you're reviewing like the willingness to like learn, adapt to new tools and like keep yourself updated, I think those challenges can go away. But the ways of stuff you can't really do much about it. You just have to like play it smart at this point. So yeah, I feel like that's my answer. I don't know if that's super helpful, but
No, it's helpful. Thank you so much. I totally get the visa stuff. Most of my friends from my master's program are, visa holders, and they're unfortunately kind of going through
Mhm.
that whole challenge of um trying to find something so that way they can stay.
Yeah, I think, but you just have to like take it as an opportunity and like you see it through a different lens and approach it in the smartest way you can. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely 100%. Thank you guys. Sorry, that was a bit more serious. But I guess my next question for you guys is, what tools or experiences have you found beneficial to the type of art that you do? I guess to expand on this question, this is more so about what kind of inspires you, or like what actively helps you to make your art, whether that be an actual tool or something that you do on a daily basis, or like occasionally in order to help inspire you.
I could jump in this one. Um, for myself, it comes back to the always wanting to learn aspect. There's always cooler tools coming out. Um, and because of that, it's like because of just that, always like, what if I can do this, or how can I execute this in this way? For example, like for weapon artists for like red dots, there's this like parallax effect on red dots that like that's how they function. And when you're making like this art of like a red dot scope or something, um, you can either just texture it on the glass, which is not how it works, but like it's something you can do. It's a way you can present your art, or you can go the extra mile and figure out like a shader, whether it be in Marmoset Toolbag or an Unreal Engine. It's like I can create this parallax, which adds this sense of realism, which adds to the experience of my weapon when I make render. It's like little stuff like that that like wanting to learn and like listening to your passion. It's like it will level up your art. And um, from one of the people I look up to, he says like the people that put all that love and effort, it shows. Like when someone else looks at your art, they will feel that love and effort, that extra mile that you put. So it's not to say that there's are specific tools that help me, because in the end of the day, when I want to learn how to do something specific, I'm gonna have to learn a new tool anyways. It's like if I want to add cool cloth to my to my weapon, like I can learn Marvelous or I can just try being lazy about it, but learning a new tool will make it better. It just will. So I would say it's like listening to that passion and like wanting to learn new things is what will benefit my art, because like even when I'm at work, it's just like I can't stay in my space of just like my 3D tools and like painting my 3D painter tools Or what I often do is I go that extra mile and I like learn Unreal Engine shaders and I try to do stuff on my end to help push it so that in game it looks better for the players. And it pushes that experience even more.
Yeah, 100% agree with what Joe said. I think learning is the most important thing when it comes to like tools. I think the tool itself, like how many tools you know, not really like a concern anymore. It's cool that if you know like 10 tools or like more tools than expected, but I don't think that's an expectation anymore from the industry. I think also at every job, you kind of have to pick up a new tool, even if you know other tools, like even like engines, like Joe was saying, like right now I'm in Unity and like my previous job was in Unreal. So it's a lot of learning even in like the specific job you're at, and you're already going to pick up all those tools anyway. So I would just focus on being comfortable with like learning a tool when it comes out, and like being like an early, even if you don't end up using the tool in your day-to-day basis, just being like an early adopter and like trying it out. Like when Substance Designer came out, I know there were a lot of people who were like, no, I'm gonna do like the hard way of like making it in ZBrush, which is cool. And I think a lot of stylized artists still try to do that. And I think that also gives like a really good output. But I think trying it out when it's early on, so you know what direction like the industry is going towards, and you can kind of like, sometimes when you try it, you don't even know you probably like will end up like adopting it and like using it on a day-to-day basis. So I think being an early adopter for tools and just making sure even your classic DCC like Maya and stuff, I remember a time when I was looking for a job, they were very specific about which tool you needed to know for that studio. But now I feel like people are like, whatever you do, like the output is what matters. So it's come down to a point where like tools are not the most important thing. It's just how you're willing to learn and adapt to it is what matters.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. And definitely, yeah, definitely now it's more so like they're more general about it, especially with like, sort of the rise of freer software like Blender, kind of being used more in both like games and also like animation since it was used, I think, on the best animated film of this love like this past year, but but definitely 100%. But um all right, cool. So this is the second to last question, but I kind of wanted to add something also. But since both of you guys, I'm not sure. I wanted to ask overall, do you guys work remotely? I know Maya, you mentioned that you partially work remotely.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm hybrid as well.
all right, cool. Um, so this question is kind of more so about working hybrid. But did working remotely or like, or prob most likely working through pandemic, did it change how you approach your art? And if so, how?
I can go first.
Mhm.
I think initially when this whole pandemic situation happened and we had to adapt remotely, I couldn't focus. I was like, what is this? I want to go back, that kind of stuff. But I think going into it, and I worked for 4 years remotely at my previous studio, and I think that taught me a lot about like time management and just self-discipline, just how to make you like focus on a lot of like context switching stuff that happens too, because sometimes I'm in like interview panels and then sometimes I have like feedback and then I see work. So it's just how I learned how to like balance that out, and I became so comfortable that kind of at one point didn't want to go back to working at a studio. But I think once you go back is when you realize what the social aspect of what you missed out when you worked remotely. But I think being remote just taught a lot of like soft skills and like how to manage time and just how to be collaborative without having any of these tools be a hindrance. Just have to figure out a way, and I think that really helped me. And now going back into the studio after being remote, it just like communications is so much easier because I was so used to like over communicating because we had to like break off that barrier of being awkward and like social in like a call. But I think that's something that flows naturally now that that experience has brought me. So
Yeah, big plus one. It's a lot like those smaller skills. And even I would say like the tough part of working from home is like for me is like my work computer and my personal stuff are in like one area. So it's just like you don't have that mental switch. And I think that mental switch is like important for going from work to personal life. It's like doing things to help you kind of like switch over. Like for me, it's like after work, I like walking my dog. So it's just like I go out, have like fresh air, and then I come back. It's like, all right, I'm no longer in like work mode, you know? Because before, I used to just like work and then just switch over to my personal computer. It's just like sitting in one spot like the whole day, which isn't really that good. So I would say like the tough part to fight is like that mental switch between work and like personal life. And that's like a benefit of going to work. You know, you kind of drive to work and it's like that transition. I do like when I can. I don't as much anymore because like driving to LA is like really tough from where I live. But going to work is a lot better of a social experience. It's like you're remembering faces more rather than like that same profile that you see in work. So when I can, I do drive to work. I do get myself to drive to work for that reason. But yeah, work from it doesn't change the approach I do for my work. I wouldn't say it does at all. It's just it's a different, you know, we're humans and we're social, you know, as humans. So it's just like it changes that mental aspect. It's hard to say for myself if it affects like the way I do art, other than like if it mentally drains me from wanting to do art after work. But yeah, that would be my answer for that.
Great, thank you. And 100% agree. Like I think the experience of working hybrid versus or working remotely versus like in office is like just completely different. When I did it for my internship, I was like, wow, because I was only in the office for 1 week and it was just like brand new. I'm like, whoa. I'm able to see this person outside of a box.
I think during internship too, you want to be there and you want to, talk to all these people. So it's extra hard when it's an internship that way.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. So, we're almost at our last question, but I do wanted to ask something that is kind of related to this, that is not on the sheet. But I wanted to ask what your guys' day to day is like, working at a studio. Um, Mainly because both of you guys have very different roles overall. So I'm kind of curious to see how they sort of are similar or differ. Yeah.
I can go first. Um, Working my way up from like intern, associate, and mid-level, I am more of an executioner. I am very heads down a lot of the time. Um, it's like obviously I'm not gonna say what I work on, but it's a lot of heads down working on day-to-day tasks. It's like day-to-day feedback and meetings, and it's just that's pretty much it. Like going we're as a 3D asset artist, that's like my main priority. It's just like pipeline stuff and doing my best in my position to improve pipeline stuff when I can, but a lot of communication with the team. Um, but big on like the like 75% heads down working on my day-to-day 3D art with the pipeline of just like my 3D software. I personally use like a lot of Blender, Maya, also Substance Painter, ZBrush, Marmoset Toolbag. Um, yeah, I'm more of a heads down type of person at work.
Yeah, I think kind of similar for me, but a little bit different because like environment art's like so it's got a lot of things happening in there. So it's like one day you're working on, like I said, a different task, and then 2 days later you're on like a completely different task where you forget everything that you were doing the last 2 days. So I feel like there's a lot of like having to figure out what the need is and just like Joe said, just being heads down once you know the task you're working on and like the classic like usage of tools like Maya, Painter. Sometimes I use a lot of designers, so that and ZBrush and Unity when it's like world building or whatever engine we're using. So yeah, I think just day to day is pretty straightforward for the most part, except when days when I'm like, what is this task? What are we doing? Or just like a completely new challenge that I have no idea about. And then I go into like research and like having to learn for that and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right, awesome. It's nice to see how similar, kind of similar, and also a bit different they are depending on the discipline. Okay, so we're gonna start off with our closing question, and then we'll open it up to the questions from the audience because we're getting close to time ending before we need to transition to the showcase. But do you have any advice for art students that are looking to work in games?
Um,
If you want to take it, go for
yeah, yeah,
it.
thank you very much. Um, yeah, there's so much to think about, especially when when you're a new coming artist. It's just like you have so many choices. And from the school I went to, there was no game art. We it was like traditional and digital art, but I see a lot of people or students making their decisions kind of like near their junior and senior year, and that's kind of when you have to already start applying. Um, so it's a lot of decision making in beginning, and when you do make your decision making, it's like committing and putting in that work. Because what you'll find is the people that do get those internships are the people that put in the time after their school nowadays. Because it's like you see these intern application and you're expected to have like almost mid-level like experience like in terms of portfolio, which is really tough. And school teaches you the foundation most of the time. And what you learn outside of school is what levels up your skill. Um, yeah, every time I see like new and upcoming interns, it's just like their work is phenomenal because they put the work after like on their free time. Whereas the people that or the students that only do, just their schoolwork, it's like you find yourself struggling. It's like, sorry, but you have to put in a lot of work. Like the game dev is, especially as an artist, really competitive. I myself got in without the art degree, so it's just like imagine the people that putting in the work with our degree, you got put in a lot more extra work as well. So it's like be very humble and like learn as much as you can because the industry is evolving very fast.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of that, and especially being humble. I think that that just goes a long way, and it's a very important skill that sometimes gets overlooked. But I think advice, what I think we already kind of talked about, like just being updated with your portfolio, being flexible with like whatever tools that come out. So those are all like the classic ones. And I think the other thing that I would like to add is I've seen this be beneficial, but when I'm like genuinely interested in a role that I'm applying for, I try to reach out on LinkedIn to not the recruiter necessarily, but even to like artists in that studio, or sometimes even artists in general for feedback or like any kind of help or portfolio review. So I think most cases than not, I've seen them be super helpful and like very understanding about the situation. So I would definitely recommend that. I think link reaching out on LinkedIn or anywhere else on ArtStation too, just artists are willing to help all the time. So I think that goes a long way. And yeah, just making sure your portfolio is just like kick-ass that itself is just gonna take you everywhere you need. So don't have to worry about it too much. You're already there.
Yeah, if I could plus one what you said, Mike, like a lot of us really know the struggle like
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
learning and like wanting to learn. So it's like if you like reach out, because I get reached out to a lot. If like when someone reaches out to me and they are like very direct with what they are looking for from me, that's even better. It's just like they're like, hey, I like X, Y, and Z. I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like not only can you look at my portfolio, but I am looking for X, Y, and Z in this feedback. It's just like, okay, I know what you're looking for. I could just like I know how to manage my time to help you because I know, especially I know what it's like to like self-learn. It's like it's tough. So it's like when someone's asking for help and and they know exactly what they're looking for, most artists will help you. Like we're
Yeah,
all in this together. Like we all want to learn. So it's just like
yeah,
we're all passionate, you know.
definitely. Yeah, I think I
Mhm.
I similarly, like, I have had a lot of experience like doing paintovers or like, just jumping on a call, that kind of stuff to help out. And that's because like I've had that someone had to do that for me, and I was like very grateful when that happened. So definitely want to do that for if anybody wants to like,
Mhm.
talk to me or like, portfolio help or anything. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys so much. 100% like plus ones on everything because I mean I reached out to Maya on LinkedIn. So
Yeah. There you go.
you it's always good to reach out and just the worst that other artists can do is just maybe not respond or maybe say like, "Hey, I don't have time," but it's never wasted effort. But we do have a couple of questions, so we'll transition to that. So I'm going to start off with the Discord, and if anyone has questions in the Twitch, feel free to leave it there. The first one is from Peter. Do you have any suggestions for student project leads creating a new game? Generally, what should the division of labor look like within the game art team? What are the most common specializations, the most niche ones? Etc. And feel free to answer how you like.
Um, I thought we both unmuted at the same time. I appreciate you letting me go first. Um, it's that one's an interesting one because like when you're in smaller teams, you gotta do a lot of work and you gotta pick up a lot of work. Especially as an artist. Because at first you're like, oh, I'll just make the characters, and then suddenly you're like, oh, no one knows how to rig and plug in the animations and put in like all the assets. Like they expect the artist to do all of that. And that's okay. Because in AAA, you're gonna have to learn all these things anyways. Like you're gonna have to someone's gonna have a question and be like, I don't know how to do it, and it will benefit you to learn how to do it. A lot of my great experiences at Riot as an intern was learning how to do something when like it's not expected. So it's like when you're in a smaller team, um, it's really good to get comfortable with not knowing how to do something because that's like the day to day. So when you're like delegating tasks, first let's start with like scope. It's always good to like be humble with your scope. Don't like as much as everyone wants to make their dream game, I would say be humble because then you know what you're looking for and it's easier to delegate. And even when you're unsure with the delegations, if it's a small scope, it's very doable. Um, and in terms of like art, like how to delegate, especially with smaller teams, people are gonna have to wear multiple hats, and that comes to the, like it's okay, be comfortable with that, and like do wear those multiple hats because for me as a 3D artist, I am in Unreal like the other half of the time doing Unreal Engine things, fixing Unreal Engine bugs because tickets go my way, and I'm the one that fixes it. So, as an artist, it's like I would say like I would really push artists to learn their game engines when they are making or when they're in like projects with like other people, especially smaller teams. It's just like, hey, be an engine all the time because at least where I work in AAA, I'm an engine all the time and like it helps. So, sorry, that was like there's a lot of like smaller questions in that. So I hope I gave like I try to give a more general like broad like, hey, be comfortable with kind of doing a lot, but be humble and have like a smaller scope because in the end of the day, is being able to finish the project is what's really important.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think Joe covered like most of the points that I was gonna hit at too. I think seeing like the scope is very important, especially when you're a student project. There are a lot of chances where it just like blows up when you all are brainstorming and it like goes into this like giant big idea. But I think I've seen this book work both ways. Like sometimes I've seen like student projects where they go like assess like the team skill set. Like, okay, we have an artist who can do all these things, and then we have an engineer and a designer. Like, what kind of game that we could brainstorm and like realistically get to. So you could approach it that way too, based on your skill set. Or you could approach it based on, okay, we have this cool idea. Who do we need? And I think based on the idea and based on the scope, like what you need kind of differs. But when you're a student, when you're in a student project, I think, like Joe said, you get to wear many hats. And I think that's the blessing because once you get to like a more specialized, start getting into like a more specialized role in the industry, you kind of miss having to do all that. And you don't really get an opportunity to do that much unless you're like in a specific role like that or in a personal project. So I think when you have that opportunity, I would say just like make use of it and scope your team or your idea according to your skill set.
To add on one more time, sorry. Um, like I think it's so powerful, like being really good at it, like in engine, because once you know how to like whatever engine you're comfortable with, once you know how to like create these assets, you can focus on your role of the artist. Like if I know how to like import characters and like update the animation or like the imported animations and like get it working with the first person controller, like I don't have to worry about it anymore because that's like the bare minimum. And I could focus on the actual art or like let's say environment. Like if you know how to like properly import the environment with like the proper like I would assume like hit detections or like barriers, then it's just like the level is now there. You could just focus on the art. So it's just like I feel you become much more powerful as an artist if you know how to like rapid prototype things in engine. So you have more time to be an artist. Whereas like if no one knows how to do it, you have to spend more time figuring it out. So it's like yeah, that's what I want to add.
Yeah, awesome, you guys. Thank you. And 100% plus one to working in engine. Which I think it's much more of like a thing for environment artists, especially because you have to set dress. But I think for all artists, it'd be really, it's such like a big thing on your resume too. And like be able to have that skill to sort of see how your stuff is rendered
Yeah, I
in
think
engine.
more than how it was earlier. Nowadays, like that's kind of like a requirement at this point when
Mhm.
you jump into your job. So it's better to know it and experiment with it when you're a student.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So I think this next question will probably be our last because we're a bit short on time. But Anuj, who is our one of our officers, would like to ask, as a non-artist, what can other disciplines do to make your jobs and potentially lives easier?
That's a very interesting question. I'm trying to think, Joe, if you have an answer ready, go for it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I have something. So it's like it's all about making people's lives easier, right? So one thing I enjoy doing on my team is cross collaborating. Um, I work on the weapons, but when I can, I create the rigs as well because we have a lot of Maya tools that make it easy to do it. We have a lot, so I create the rigs if I know they're basic enough. I can create the rig and um, if it's even more minimal, I can even re-export animations on my end. And it's just like those usually would be the job of the tech artist or the animator or like other people, but it makes their lives easier because I know if it's a mundane, like simple task, I don't have to like reach out, wait till they're free and do it. I can just do it on my own. So it's that mindset of like if I could figure out this small step that can just like actually get it to their side of the court, I'm gonna figure that out because like especially for me, I usually have like a little bit of buffer time when I finish things. So it's like that makes their lives easier. So it's like if it's figuring out the little stuff that makes each other's lives easier, like in their workflow, or it's like if you're a concept artist and you're making the concept for like weapons, what our concept artists do is they sketch it out in Blender in 3D and then do paint over so they make sure that things actually make sense. So it's just like the concept artists, they go that little extra mile to help us out. So it's like if you find yourself in a role that communicates or works before or after like that 3D art stage, it's just like if you can find out what they do in the beginning or at the very end and like find a bridge like somewhere, I think that can help each other out like and make you a stronger whatever role you're in because now you're helping with like the bridge and that is a very big thing that we do on the team all the time.
I think for me, just like being organized when you're like passing on tasks, and this is also for artists when you're when multiple artists are like collaborating on a specific task. I think just like staying organized, and once you have your part kind of done, like just collaborating and like communicating with the other artist to kind of include their idea and come to like a consensus on like what both of you are trying to achieve together. And this works for like designers, concept artists, and like artists as well. So just I think it's like a cross-discipline thing that could apply to anyone. But yeah, just staying strong in communication and being very organized and like passing it on and being more collaborative, I think helps a lot.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys. I believe we are pretty much out of time. We have to let Jason go to set up for the showcase stream, but I wanted to thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your days to be able to be here for the summit. This has been like really, really insightful and helpful. And yeah. Um, so I guess in about 5 minutes we'll be starting off the showcase stream, which believe we'll be starting off with Encore, the student game. And yeah. I'll see
Thank
you
you.
guys in 5 minutes.
This was a
Oh
fun
wait, no,
chat.
do you guys
Thanks
want to
for
say
having
bye?
us. Oh no, I just wanted to say thanks for having us. Like it was fun chatting with you all. And good luck to anyone who's looking at this and gonna apply and stuff.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's always fun to do these.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
All right. See ya.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
Joe.
Bye.
Bye Maya.